When you're ready.
Yeah, go ahead.
Don't call me a goat head. My name is Ernest Eguia. I was born in Lockhart, Texas, November the 7th, 1919.
What's your earliest memory that you have?
Of what?
Growing up.
Well, I was brought to Houston when I was 6 months old. So I don't have too much to remember about Lockhart, but I have been to Lockhart many times. But my earliest recollection of growing up in Houston was going to the first school that I attended, and that was Hawthorne School. It was an elementary on Houston Avenue, Houston and Edwards. And I graduated from there, went on to Dow School, which was a junior high school, back in those days, junior high school, and went on to Sam Houston High School. Those are the earliest things that I remember about.
What was Houston like back then?
The best way that I can recall it, because back then there were still a lot of horses around downtown. In fact, I guess I can refer to your great grandfather. He had a place there where they used to take horses to him so that he could fit horseshoes on them. And his place was right adjacent to the farmer's market. So there were still a lot of horses around Houston, and I wouldn't call it a one-horse town yet, but it was a small town. I don't think. Of course, I was very young then. I started selling papers when I was 9 years old, and I sold papers on the corner of Houston Avenue and Washington. But I don't think that there were over 300,000 people in Houston then.
When you went to Sam Houston, there was a teacher there by the name of
Lyndon B. Johnson.
What was he like?
Well, as I recall, he was not my teacher, but I recall seeing him several times in the hall. He was like a tall, skinny guy, almost like a hillbilly-like. He wore a hat with a little bitty brim, maybe about an 1.5 inch brim, and he looked like he came from the farm, all right. But I didn't know him. He was a teacher there, but he was not my teacher, and I didn't at that time. No, I guess nobody knew that he was going to be president of the United States someday.
When did you find out you were going to the Army? You got drafted, right?
Yes, I got drafted. That was back in 1941.
Was it before Pearl Harbor?
Oh yes,
right.
Yes. I was inducted in October of 1941, and Pearl Harbor was December of 41.
So you went to service when Pearl Harbor happened?
Yes, I had already taken my basic training.
What was going through your mind when Pearl Harbor happened?
Well, frankly, not much was going on, because when I was inducted, they promised us that we would be gone for a year, and after a year we would be back home. So November the 7th, 1941, I was at Fort Lewis, Washington, and the news came around that Pearl Harbor had been attacked, and we were immediately told that we were in for the duration of the war. We had to stay in. We would not be going home in a year. But that day, and if I'm not mistaken, it was a Sunday, we started emptying our pockets one by one, and 2 or 3 of the sergeants got the money, and they went to town and bought cases of whiskey and beer and whatever. And everybody, and I mean everybody, got stinking drunk. Now at Fort Lewis, Washington, back then we had a way of heaters that were heated by coal, and these heaters were about 8 foot tall. And at that time, people were designated to do those things, to feed the heaters with coal. And if you November the 7th, or rather December the 7th, 1941, was cold as the devil. So we got stinking drunk, and the next morning it was cold as the devil, no heat in the barracks, and I mean it was all the way around Fort Lewis. That's the way it was. Everybody was tanked out. But that's what I recall of Pearl Harbor Day.
What was going on back home in Houston with Mexican Americans? How were they treated in Texas?
When?
In the 1940s, while you're in the Army, how were...
Well, I don't know. I was in the Army back in the 40s.
Right. But before you left, how were they treated?
Before, we were discriminated. Being of Hispanic descent, we were classified as Latin Americans back then. And I say classified, everybody called us Mexicans, but we were discriminated upon. There were certain places in the city that did not allow Mexican Americans to go. Some public places. Frankly, I was young and I didn't pay too much attention to it. But I even recall that the Rice Hotel discriminated against Jewish people. They would not allow, if your name was Jewish, they would not allow you in. So there was discrimination in Houston. And even the blacks then they were very, very separated then. They had their own places of worship. They had their own restaurants, their own theater. The Lincoln Theater on Prairie Avenue, that's where they went.
Now, in the service, you had tours in Germany, right?
Well, I was eventually in Germany, yes.
Where did you see action?
Well, we were in England when we were prepared to go across for the invasion, and that was my first action, because we went across the channel there on D+. My unit went in D+6, but because I was a forward observer for artillery, I went in one day before my unit to set up the placement for the guns and to set up an observation post to see if I could get anything to shoot at from an observation post. So we went into the invasion, and that's where I saw my first action. I had never seen so many dead people as those that I saw on the beach there. Utah Beach is where we landed. Disabled vessels of all kinds, big ships, little ships, all over the channel there, and we were still getting some action there, although it was D+5. And I might be mistaken, it might have been D+4, but we were still getting a little action. We had to get to a situation where we could bring our guns. Our guns were 155 millimeter guns called long toms. And those guns were able to shoot a missile up to 13 miles away. So we had to get to where we could get the right placements for them so that we could not only get them well placed and get them where we could have them ready to fire, but I had to go forward with my unit to seek a good place for an observation post where we could look for targets. And consequently, I got shot at a couple of times, but that was my first encounter. Later on, of course, we excuse me, we got quite a few encounters with the Germans. They had a very good Air Force. It was much better than ours at that time, and we got they bombarded us at night several times, and it wasn't but a couple of 3 nights after that we lost our first 2 men. One of them was his name was Munoz, and the other one was Epperson. And because I happened to be at the gun placement the night that they hit us, I got to carry Munoz back to the medic, and of course he didn't make it. He was hit by one of these little bombs that were probably as big as a small, I guess it would be a baseball, bigger than a baseball, and it exploded and it hit him in the stomach, and it did him in. And Epperson also got killed. Those are the first 2 casualties we had. But we went on, and we fought what they call the hedge country there, and we ran into difficulty just like every other GI did. And we had 5 campaigns, 5 battles, 5 campaigns. The last one being the Battle of the Bulge near the Herdman Forest, and it scared the wits out of us because I was a forward observer, but they gave me a bazooka to see if I could be ready to hit a tank. And fortunately, no tanks came by where I was placed at, which was a main highway there. And the next day we were told that the battle had died down, and a couple of days after that, we had won the battle. But I guess the biggest skirmish that I can remember was around a little town by the name of Aachen. And I was fortunate enough to be a forward observer on top of a hill, and I directed fire on a town, a little village, and I brought in the entire battalion on that little village, destroyed the movement that was going on there, because I saw a lot of movement of vehicles and personnel down below. And I guess I earned the Bronze Star then, so I was awarded that at Aachen, Germany.
Did you ever go into Berlin?
No. No.
And when were you discharged from the Army?
Exactly 4 years later, October the 7th, 1945.
45. And it was already after the bomb was dropped.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Were they preparing you for the Japanese invasion?
Yes. Yeah, we were under instructions to get ready to go to Japan.
And did you train for that too?
Well, we had already had a lot of training, and we had gone through training in the Mojave Desert. We had been training in several places here in the United States. We had a pretty good oiled machine that we did. I think we did a very good job of the artillery that we were in. We got commendations from the several generals that we did a very good job. So as far as training, I think we were ready. If we were going to do anything, all we had to do was go.
Did you find that in the Army they treated you differently than back home, where Anglos were taught to you?
Definitely. Oh yeah, there was nothing, no discrimination in the Army. There had better not be. Once we got over there, whoever discriminated against you would pay. And I don't think they would like it. No, there was nothing like that. We were all aware that we had better take care of each other. And we were trained pretty well. We were a pretty well oiled machine when we got ready to go. We were all brothers, and nobody thought any more or less of one or the other. In fact, I kept in touch with many of the fellows in my unit. I went to several of the gatherings that we had in Riverside, California. Reunions. I think I counted. I went to either 10 or 12 reunions over there, and we went there, and several, 2 or 3 fellows from around Texas. We got together. One from Thorndale and one from down in the coast. Got together, and we went. They were in our outfit. We were together. We went to Riverside, and we went to those gatherings. We had a good time. And the first gathering, the first reunion, there were over close to 300 of us at the hotel. And here, the last one, which was, I guess, 8 or 9 years ago, they wrote to me not to come over anymore because there were less than 50 of us left. So, no use going back anymore. But in the meantime, we all wrote to each other. I am still writing to one of the my friend's daughters that lives in Riverside. We write to each other still, and we were close, very close. And his name was Eddie Miller. And I visited him at his house several times. Another one, Dwayne Brown, I visited him in West Virginia. Rudy Medina, several of them that I visited all around California there. We kept in touch very well. But of course, most of us have died out. I don't know what the hell I'm doing here, but I'm still here.
Now, when you came back to Houston, it's very different than the Army experience. There's still discrimination going on.
Yes, I thought that I would find a different city. I thought I would find the reception, open arms and ready to greet you here, and happy to see you back. But that wasn't the case. Much against the talked to us when I got discharged. They told us not to join any organization that seemed to be communist. So I was very careful not to join just anything, and for about a year and a half, I was approached to join LULAC, and I didn't know anything about LULAC. And then a fellow by the name of Samuel Alderete approached me because my wife and I stood in a wedding for his sister, and he approached me and asked me if I was a World War II veteran. I told him yes, and he asked me if I knew anything about a veteran by the name of Macario Garcia. I said, no, I don't know anything about him. So he told me the story about Macario Garcia, that he was on his way home from Fort Sam Houston with some other people, some other veterans that got discharged, and they had stopped at Fort Bend to get a hamburger, and he was denied a hamburger because he was a Mexican. And one of the fellows that was with him asked the owner, says, don't you know that this man has the Medal of Honor? That's the highest medal that anybody in the service can get, and you're denying him service? So the guy says, I don't give a damn what he's got. He's a Mexican and I will not serve him. So these guys, I think that 5 or 6 of them, tore the restaurant. They tore it up. They just disabled it. So the owner took Macario Garcia to court. That is when I joined LULAC, because Macario Garcia, being a Medal of Honor recipient, being an Hispanic, being a veteran of World War II, and not being served a hamburger because he was a so-called Mexican, after putting his life on the line, after serving his country, after being decorated like that, I decided I'm going to help this man. So I joined, and we raised money to fight Macario Garcia's case when it would go to court. But because of the publicity that the restaurant got, and back in those days we didn't have television, but they got radio and newspapers wide all over the United States. They dropped the case. So by that time, we had already raised a little over $6,000 for Macario. We gave it to him, and he gave it to his mother, who bought a house for herself. And I have been in LULAC since then, which is over 60 years now. We have fought many discrimination cases, including cases where in Pearland there were signs, big signs, right over schools, Mexican school, colored school, and white school, right next to each other. And we fought those cases in court and won. I say we, I'm not an attorney, but LULAC had attorneys. We went to court and fought those cases, including a very, very famous case. I think it was the Hernandez case that went to court because the courts were not, I don't know if they didn't allow them or they, for some reason they would not admit them, Hispanics in juries. So that case was also won. A very important case in which a fellow by the name, an attorney by the name of Gus Garcia, John J. Herrera, 2 other attorneys they went before the Supreme Court of the United States and won that case. And in fact, Gus Garcia was so eloquent in his delivery that I understand they are given 7.5 minutes to state their case. And Gus was so eloquent that the Supreme Court gave him an extra 7.5 minutes. And he was he will always be known for that. And he won that case. He won it big, and he will always be known for that particular case.
November 1963, you guys had a LULAC function at the Rice Hotel.
Right.
And you invited the president, John F. Kennedy, to attend. What happened there? And how did he?
I didn't invite him. John J. Herrera, who was a national president of LULAC, arranged the gathering at the Rice Hotel. Impromptu as it was done very quickly. There was no time to do anything. I think that he received the notice that the president would be here. I think it was the 22nd, and it was in the morning. And to cut the story short, by that night at 8 o'clock, the Crystal Ballroom at the Rice Hotel was full to capacity. LULACs from all over the state came to be with President Kennedy. As some of the pictures that you have seen, people from Laredo, people from San Antonio, El Paso, Corpus Christi, and many other cities drove down here, flew down here to be here that night. And it was a wonderful night because the president was here with his group, his wife, Vice President Johnson, and many dignitaries that were already here attended that night. And like I say, that the ballroom was just packed with people, and everybody was just happy as they could be. And I have said this before, and I'll reiterate that my wife happened to be at the far end of the ballroom, and she had a beautiful dress on, and one of the people from the entourage of President Kennedy spotted her and wanted her to come to the front to take a picture with the president. By the time they went to get her and bring her back, they told the president that he had to leave, so he left. So she didn't get her picture with the president, but it was a very, very joyful evening. The president spoke, his wife spoke, Lyndon Johnson spoke, we had mariachis there, and like I said, there were people from far reaches of the state that came in, and it was an elegant gathering, and I'm sure that it'll go down in history.
What did it mean for that group of people who, for years, have just been trying to argue we're Americans like you guys?
I don't know what it meant to them. I know one thing, that it did something for the city, because it enhanced the interest that the president showed to LULAC, because he knew LULAC was a very influential organization nationally, and he knew that a lot of the people that were there that night were past presidents of the organization, and he was always a president that showed interest in the Hispanic people. He knew how to speak Spanish, and so did his wife, and they spoke Spanish that night. but I think it gave the city of Houston a boost, if nothing else.
What was the reaction the next night after he was assassinated?
Oh, nothing but sorrow. Nothing but sorrow. I remember being at work when it happened. Everybody, the main businesses were all around the square. Around City Hall was right there in the square, and all the businesses were situated around the square and not too far away, but everybody closed down. I mean, shut their doors right quick. Everybody went home. Very sorry, very sad. People were crying. Nobody was talking to each other, but you could see the sadness in their eyes. And I remember my friend, the man that I was working for, he wept, and so did a lot of people. It was a very sorrowful thing.
LBJ becomes president, passes the Civil Rights Bill, all these different things to help Mexican Americans. And he even brought him up in one of his speeches there. How was LBJ with Mexican Americans?
LBJ, being a Texan, he had his ways with them. I wouldn't say he was as close as, let's say, the Kennedys were, even though they were from Massachusetts. But he had his ways with the Hispanic people. He knew the ins and outs of the lives of people here. He knew that the people were not getting their just attributes that they should get wherever it might be, whether it was an education, housing, or whatever. He knew it. So I think that he leaned more towards the Hispanics than against them. I wouldn't say that he was 100%, but he did lean towards the Hispanics.
Now, flash forward 40, 50 years later, you have Latino politicians,
yes.
You have them media, you have them businessmen,
Absolutely.
lawyers, everywhere. Did you ever think you'd see so many in all these professional positions?
Well, as far as thinking, I don't know about thinking. We were always striving towards that. We are, and I'm talking about those of us that are in LULAC, we're always striving to be an organization that is civic, an organization that is of service to the community, and therefore trying to enhance the community to become better citizens. Primarily the Hispanics, to see that they get a better education, to see that they get to be in the flow of the way that everybody is living. Don't hold back just because you are Hispanic. Try to be American as much as possible. Try to be a good citizen. That's what it is. Try to be a good citizen. Try to be a person of the community. Try to be somebody that will help somebody else to get someplace else. Don't be what Henry B. Gonzalez, the great Henry B. Gonzalez, used to say, don't be a Mexican crab. Hold down the crab that's trying to get ahead. So instead of that, try to help them up. And that is why I'm not surprised that we have all these people in these places now. I'm glad, but I am not satisfied. I wish there were more. I think that there should be more. I think that Eventually we will have an Hispanic as a president. I don't see why not. They are just as intelligent as anybody else. Why not?
Are you proud of them? Proud of them?
Definitely.
Yeah.
I think they are a product of the seeds that we planted. Because back when we came out of the service, there were no police, no firemen in Houston that were Hispanic. There was nobody working in City Hall, in the offices, that was Hispanic. But because of LULAC, because of the efforts of LULAC, they are in there now. And not only are there now, but they are in positions where they are the bosses. They are in several places. Right across the street is Adrian Garcia, councilman of District H. By golly, yes, I am proud. The thing is that we should have more. There are a few, but one thing continues that I think that we ought to learn, and again from Henry B. Gonzalez, and that is, don't fight against each other, fight for each other. I think we'll get ahead if we use that theory. Instead of fighting against each other, fight for each other. We'll get more people to represent us, not only here in Houston in the council as councilman, but in the state and even nationally. And right now we are trying to get Rick Noriega, see if we can get him to be the next senator from the state of Texas. By then, if we can do that, I'll really be proud.
Have you accomplished everything you wanted to do in your life so far?
Never accomplished anything I wanted, everything I wanted to do. I won't live that long.
Thank you, appreciate it. Now, this one is family. Can you talk a little bit about growing up in Houston and my grandmother Ruth?
Gosh, we grew up during the Depression. We lived on Dart Street, 1800 block of Dart Street. And those of us that lived through the Depression know what hardship is. Nobody that I know of that was an adult had a real good job, except people that had big money. And nobody can tell you that a lot of people had big money. So the country was in deep depression. I used to get up at 5 o'clock in the morning to go to the farmer's market. I had made up a little wagon made out of a wooden box that apples came in. Went to the farmer's market to help either load or unload whatever the farmers came in with, whether it was fruit or vegetables. And they would give me, or sometimes fruit would fall off and I'd pick it up and put it in the wagon. And sometimes I'd work for helping them unload. They would pay me with corn or some vegetable that they had brought in, and that's what we lived off of. We we had to live some way, and my father wasn't working, and not many fathers were working. Those that were working weren't making money. I know because those that were working were making $1 a day. And I mean from 7 in the morning to 7 in the evening. But later on I started selling papers when I was about 8 years old. I got a job shining shoes at a barber shop right off of Houston Avenue on Washington Avenue. I shined shoes there for a nickel a pair. And when I wasn't shining shoes, I sold papers, because the newspapers were sold on the corner there, and the streetcars used to come by there, and they would stop on the corner to let people off, and I would hustle my papers to the people on the streetcar. Excuse me. And I sold the Houston Press, the Houston Chronicle, and the Houston Post. The Post and the Chronicle sold for a nickel, and the Press for 3 cents. And sometimes you kind of have to be a little wily, so they'd give me a dime to pay for the Chronicle, and I'd fish around for the change, and I'd wait till the streetcar would take off, and I'd make an extra nickel on the paper. But you had to do those things sometimes. And shining shoes at a nickel a pair didn't make me much money either. So those were tough times. And I remember that my father even had to take a job as a night watchman. That's all there was to do. So things were tough. And like I tell you, I'd get up in the morning at 5, go to the market, help out, come back, and then go to school. After school, go shine shoes and sell papers, come back. Sometimes I'd have to go out and look for wood because there was no gas, and we'd have to cook and keep warm, and we'd go get some railroad ties and whatever we could burn, saw up the wood and cut it up, and use that to warm up with and to cook, and then do my homework and start the day off again the next day. But that's the way we grew up during the Depression. And
was your brother working too as well?
no, he later on started shining shoes also. 2 years younger than I, so he started shining shoes when he became about 8 or 9, 10 years old. And I later on got a job at a dry goods store, 314 Milam. After school, the man hired me to clean the store after school for 25 cents. So I cleaned the store, and after I cleaned it up, I still keep on shining shoes until it got dark, and then go home. But I'd clean the store after school, and then on Saturdays I'd work all day, and he'd give me 50 cents. So later on my father became sick and he couldn't work, because later on he did get a job, and he became sick. He had eye problems and other problems, couldn't work. So the man at the store gave me a full-time job at the store, working 6 days a week for $1 a day each day. So I had to quit school, 10th grade, and I worked Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 7 until 7. Thursday from 7. No, Thursday and Friday. Thursday from 7. Thursday and Friday to 7 to 8. Saturday until 9 o'clock. Still $1 a day. And the man that I worked for started asking me, how long do you take to go eat? Because I used to run home and eat. I lived about a mile away. Eat and come back. How long do you take to eat? I said, oh, about 30 minutes. What do you do? I said, run home, eat, and run, come back. So he says, I'm going to buy you lunch. You go across the street, they got a plate lunch, a meat, 2 vegetables, soup, bread, a drink if you want soda water, milk, whatever you want, and dessert, 15 cents. So he would give me 15 cents on Saturday so that I would eat in about 10 or 15 minutes and come back. And that's how I got to eat on Saturday, that he would feed me. And I remember one time a man came over to the store and I was working there, and he asked him, Mr. Buck, how come you hired that boy there? He said, well, because he's a good worker. He said, well, I'm a man, I've got a family, how about giving me the job? I need it real bad. I said, okay, if you can do what he does. He works all day, and he gave him the hours. He works from 7 to 7, and 7 to 9 on Saturdays. He said, you know, on Sunday, sometimes we come down there and clean. He comes down there on Sunday morning and cleans, and I don't pay him. And the guy said, well, I can do that too. I've got a family. He said, well, do you know where Ace High Company is? He said, yeah, it's out on Jackson Street. He says, yeah, it's about 15, 18 blocks from here. He said, well, I'll send him over there every now and then because they make khaki pants or they make overalls there, and I need some for a customer, and he'll go over there and get them from me. Do you think you can do that? Oh, yeah, I can do that. How long will it take you to go up there and back? He said, oh, 18 blocks. Oh, maybe 15, 20 minutes, I don't know. He said, this boy can go up there and back in 10 minutes. He runs like a rabbit. He said, you can't do that. So I kept my job. Anyway, I stayed there until I went into the service. But I eventually made more money. I stayed there long enough to where I was buying my own tailor-made suits. I could buy a tailor-made suit for $18. Tailor-made. Pick out the cloth, pick out the style I wanted, and then make me a suit, tailor-made for 18 bucks. I wouldn't pay for it cash. I'd pay for it $1 and then maybe 50, 20, 75 cents a week until I paid it out. But I did own some tailor-made suits, and we enjoyed a little better times after things got better.
I heard my grandmother was a good dancer. Is that true?
One of the best. Yeah, I remember taking her to a dance downtown, and Ray Anthony was playing there, and she and I got to dancing together, and I don't remember the dance that they were playing, but we got to dancing, and we were dancing real good, and first thing you know, we had a crowd watching us. We were doing real well. Yeah, she was a very good dancer, very, very good dancer.
Was she pretty popular back then?
Oh yes, she was a very good-looking girl, very very popular, very easygoing, and on top of that, being brought up in the Depression, she was a good cook, a good housekeeper, just like all the young girls of that time, I believe. They attended these dances that were. I guess they were hosted by the city over at the city park and things like that, the YWCA. Yeah, she learned to dance, and she was a very good dancer, very popular.
What could she have done if she had lived today? If she had access to college and all this stuff? What do you think she would have done today?
I think that today she would probably be a mentor for some young people. She would probably be teaching people, trying to set them straight. These are the ones that are, I'm referring to these that are going bad. Try to straighten them up, trying to teach them the right way. She was that kind of person. She was that kind of person that would help others. I remember during the Depression, hobos would come to our house, and my mother would make tacos, and Ruth would help out making tacos to give to the hobos, because that's how we lived. But she was like all girls of that day. They were house people. They always helping somebody else, helping somebody in the neighborhood, helping somebody in the family. I think that today she would be doing the same thing.
All her children went to college, and now all her grandkids went to college. Are you surprised by that?
Oh no, we stress that. I know that our 4 children went to college. Especially in LULAC, we have always stressed that the important thing is to have education, because once you have your education, nobody's going to take it away from you. They can beat you to death, but you'll still have your education inside of you. You will always have your education, so it's important to get it. When I got married, I met my wife when we got married. That is one of the things we stressed, is getting our kids to college. I think they knew they had to go to college. There was just no two ways about it. How they got to college was our business. We sacrificed quite a bit to get them there, but they went. And yes, they had to go. No two ways about it.
Where did you meet your wife?
Downtown in front of the Texan Theater, the first time.
How old was she then?
18.
And how old are you?
Years old.
What did you tell her? How did you woo her?
I was going around with her, with a girl that she was rooming with. And for certain reasons, I didn't date her anymore. So I called her and dated her. And she was just the opposite of this other girl. And we kept on dating. And within 9 or 10 months, we were married.
Where'd y'all get married?
Right in Houston.
Right here. What church?
Oh gosh, St. Peter's, I believe the name of it was.
Mm-hmm. And where was the reception?
There was no reception. We got married, we got on the bus, and we went to Mexico for our honeymoon.
Where did y'all go in Mexico?
It's Monterey.
Monterey?
Yes.
What did y'all do there?
Well, we visited around. We went to various places. We visited all over the places, all the historical places around there. I met a guy that was from Houston there. He was the, he must have been the manager of the hotel. So I hit it pretty good. He started showing us all over the place there. And I met a guy that used to live here in Houston, and he took us around pretty good, around Monterey, including the brewery, Cola de Caballos, all over the place. We had a very nice time.
The folks that are coming here now from Mexico, who have come here in the past few years, are they any different than us when we came 100 years ago in the city?
I don't know 100 years ago, but these people today astonish me. I try to imbue them with the idea that they should learn to speak English as quickly as possible. They live here now, they want to live here now, fine. become a citizen as quick as you can and learn the language. And when you're out in public, try not to speak loudly in Spanish. Try to be a good citizen. So, I don't know. I have run into different kinds of people here lately, and I don't know how to classify them. I just, you get all kind of people. You get some that are very intelligent. I've met some people that have come here and built businesses that are intelligent, and they immediately apply to become citizens. And then you see the other spectrum. They just want to kind of milk the country out of something and stay here. Well, I don't agree with them, so I don't have much to do with them.
Those that are learning English, kids are in school and learning English.
They are definitely taking care of their kids and trying to send them to school and trying to make them good citizens. And they themselves are learning how to be good citizens. In fact, several of them have asked me how to vote. And of course, I don't tell them how to vote. I tell them they vote the way they want. I show them who's voting, who they can vote for. But I told them that's one of the privileges that you should take advantage of, voting. Not too many countries have that. So, yeah, they're becoming good citizens. The ones that are interested in becoming good citizens, the ones that are joining the Mexican Mexican commerce here. They're becoming citizens, business people. They live right in the neighborhood, some of them. Arandas, they have several places around town. Their children are executives, big business people now. So yes, they're integrating right into the American dream. Yes.
And your brother also served in World War II.
Yes, he did.
Where did he do his tours?
He also served in the European Theater of Operation.
Right. Did you ever see him when you were in?
No, he got wounded one time, and I went to look for him. My captain let me have a jeep, and I was gone for a couple of days to look for him, and I never could find him. Right. But he served in Europe also.
When did you find out he was okay?
I never did find out he was okay till after the war.
Yeah. Then you found out he was okay. Yeah. He was more than okay.
Oh yeah, he was okay. He came out. He wasn't wounded too bad.
Okay. And then he came back and started his clothing company.
Well, he became a tailor. He went to Corpus Christi and learned how to be a tailor. He came back and he became a fireman. He was a fireman until he retired from being a fireman, and then he went to work for us. We had a couple of stores here, big man stores, and he went to work as a tailor for us.
And then he settled in Houston.
Oh yeah, he settled in Houston right away. He came back from the service.
He was also in LULAC, right?
Yes, he was. He was also a president of LULAC Council 60, like I.
Like you were. And what's LULAC doing now?
Well, I think I'll tell you that I haven't been too active. I guess my age and my health demand that I slow down. Not completely, but I'm not as active as I used to be, so I don't know that they're involved in too many things or what they're involved in.
Okay. Well, thank you. Appreciate it.